One. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another photo mishmash. I'm Toby, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Steve of Steve Scourge Photography. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how is everybody?
I'm doing well. We'll let the chat chime in and see how they're doing. Thanks for joining us. If you're joining us live, this show is broadcast usually at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesdays. However, we were hard at work yesterday on webinar content, some really fantastic travel content coming. So that threw us off a little bit, but we're back. We're here today with you all. We're excited to talk about the week's photo news, nerd out a little bit. No Star Wars spoilers yet, even though Steve and I have both seen it because we recognize. I mean, that's actually one of my, I'm really glad that I saw it, not because, or because I enjoyed it, but also because now I'm not nervous every time I open up Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was big.
Even like all the YouTube videos and stuff, depending on what people are subscribed to, there's just constant YouTube chatter about it right now. And typically, it doesn't give away anything, but it is nice to be able to scroll through my channel and not feel like something's going to get spoiled.
Yeah. I didn't even really want to know what general people's opinion of it was, like how it was getting reviewed or rated. I just wanted to go see it, you know? And so I was trying to avoid all of that, and it was tricky.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and also just to dovetail into what you were talking about with the webinar today, we are going to be, for those of you that are keeping track of the stuff that's coming out each week with Penn, we're going to be a little light on that for the next few weeks. We're getting into the holidays. A lot of people are taking some time off, including us. But we're also working on a lot of big things that we're going to kind of release right after the first of the year. One of which is this travel webinar. That's going to be awesome. We've got some image review stuff coming. There's been some chatter about that. And so we're working on a lot of great stuff, but just a couple of the smaller lessons are going to be a little light for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I was looking back though through our Tuesday tips, and there's a lot of content in those Tuesday tips. Steve, yours last week, yeah, I gave you the idea, but then you wrote a fantastic deep dive article into, you know, really thinking about taking pictures in snow. And even if you're not photographing in snow, there's just kind of tips and techniques in there for you. Looking through the slides that we're going to cover in the travel section coming up, it's huge. I mean, there are huge portions of it that just apply to general photography and have fantastic things to think about. So yeah, we're really excited about that. Oops, the camera's stuck on me. Sorry. Well, you know, that's because I'm the star of the show.
You're the YouTube star.
I'm the YouTube star. We're just really excited about all of that. I do hope to get out one more video to you all Penn members this week, and that is a little hands-on putting together a time lapse. It's kind of timely for those of us who came to Alaska with us. A lot of people shot kind of these segments of the aurora, and they want to put it together in a little bit of a time lapse, but it really can be used for anything in any ways. Most of our cameras have built-in intervalometers nowadays, which makes it really easy. And if they don't, then you can suffer with me in Dongle hell. Now, Steve, I don't know if you remember back when this show was public all the time, I took great pride in coming up with stupid titles for it as often as possible. And once it went, you know, just to the Penn members and Patreon, I felt like, you know, let's just put the date and I don't have to, what does a title mean? But I had to tack on a title today because sitting on my desk is about 18 different dongles. And that's what I've been dealing with the last 24 hours, not to be too dramatic about it, but trying to get different time-lapse apps to work, different time-lapse options to work with the Sony. It's not the Sony's fault. It seems like some of what I was sent, but look at this cute little thing right here. It's so cute. It's adorable. Just sits up.
I might need one of those.
No, just because it's cute, you don't even know what it does, and you like it, right?
Yeah, no, it just looks cool. It's got an orange band around it, so I like that.
I can light it up too.
Oh yeah, totally.
All right.
I'll give you my address. You can send me one for Christmas.
Yeah, hopefully one that works. This is from the Myops guys. I've talked about their stuff before. This is their new little mobile remote, and it's supposed to sit up there in the hot shoe, and you wire it into the camera, and it fires it off. But mine doesn't seem to be able to be able to do that. And actually not just the Sony, the Canon, any of the cameras I tried it with. So I was trying to plug all that in. But then when you start working with my newest phone, you know, no more headphone jack. All of these work with headphone jack. So then you have to have the little USB-C dongle. And this works with some of those devices, and other ones it seems like it doesn't know that anything's plugged. Dongle hell, Steve. Dongle hell.
If you were still an iPhone user, you would have been living in the dongle world for the last 2 years, and you'd be totally up to speed on this. It's just dongle issue just isn't a problem. I'm actually lying about that, because I just finally picked up an iPad to replace my laptop for when we go on trips. So I'm about to use that kind of as a laptop when I travel. So I'm about to basically enter dongle hell, because I've got to get all these little attachments that my MacBook Pro had that I no longer have, that needs to go to a Lightning port. So here we go.
Gotcha. So I'm really interested to hear and see more of your kind of workflow with this. Is this, you going to bring this to Vietnam?
I am, yeah. And that was actually a big part of the reason why I wanted to kind of downsize. I want to travel light for that trip. But then just trips in general, I think a lot of us in this forum too have been talking about just being a little bit more intentional with how we're going to operate when we're traveling or when we go out shooting. I think I've come around a little bit. I think there is something to be said for kind of planning out your shoot, where you're going to be, do a little research, figure out what lens to bring, and then with what you have. I've always just carried everything with me. And to be honest with you, with the amount of travel that we do, it just gets to be a little daunting and a little heavy. We've got Tanzania coming up, which allows 50 pounds total for your camera gear and all of your clothes and that type of stuff. And that's a challenge. And these laptops can be kind of a boat anchor after a while. So we'll see how this goes. I've got Lightroom CC loaded onto it. I'm just going to download my files into that, back them up, and do some minor edits while I'm out in the field. But then when I get home, you know, really work on the files on my desktop.
Yep. Yeah. Interesting. So that's great. I think I struggle with the idea of completely leaving my laptop behind, mostly because of the video side of things. Photo side, I think I could do it, but I'm just going to be looking over your shoulder in Vietnam. I'm pretty sure I'm still going to bring a laptop. But the idea, I mean, what is that weight difference? I mean, it's pretty significant. Steve, you still there? I don't hear you.
Yeah, you were breaking up on me. I don't know if everybody else got that, but I missed that last part. Sorry.
I was asking if what the weight difference. I mean, an iPad from you got a 15-inch MacBook Pro. I think they weigh about 5, maybe getting close to 6 pounds when you throw in the power adapter. iPad.
It's substantial. I mean, here's the new. This is a so what I got is a 10.5-inch iPad Pro, because I can use the pencil with this, and it just operates really fast. But I mean, this thing is tiny. You can. I mean, I do have long fingers, but look, I mean, I can just hold this.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's pretty slick. And the screen with the new one, I don't know if you can see, it kind of goes right to the edge. So got 10.5 inches of screen space apparently versus 9.7 of the previous model. But the body itself is the same size as a 9.7-inch iPad. So it's kind of gotten to the point where, I mean, this is so substantial compared to my laptop.
Yeah.
I'm going from 5 pounds to probably a pound, or I don't know what this thing is, but.
Nice. Good. Yeah. All right. So, you know, folks are interested. I'm interested. We'll keep people up to date on how that goes. And I'd like to try to bring something different, maybe like a Surface Pro or something along with me as well. But I just get nervous leaving behind the comfort of my MacBook, which I know I can handle all my video editing with ease, and of course all of my picture editing. I just don't love carrying it.
I would never, ever, ever bring Windows into the Serengeti.
Yeah. The Surface Pros are supposed to be pretty good, and a lot of people are happy about them. But
I might be able to get you a good deal on one. My dad is notorious for buying like new technology, and then 6 months later he just can't figure out how to use it. And I've actually stopped inheriting some of his stuff because
he's got to be too much.
Around with Windows for a while. I'm like, sorry, Pop, that's just
All right. Well, you know, I don't have a pop, so or not anymore. So if he wants to adopt me and send some stuff my way, I'm
Yeah,
totally up for that.
he's got a heart of gold. He'd probably love it.
Um, one other thing that I put out a while ago and haven't talked about the results yet was I asked people what they thought the camera of the year was. So this would be a camera that was released this year that was in their mind the best. And you know, that's a quite a subjective thing. But I had pretty good response rate on that. I have over 530 responses. Let me share my screen here. And it looks like the A7R3 has come out on top fairly solidly with 33%. We're followed up by the Nikon D850, and then what's the purple? The Sony A9. And then we've got a little sliver of the 6D Mark II. I actually don't even know what percentage that is. Oh, 7.9%. I don't know why it blinks so much like that. That's annoying. And the GH5 at 6%. I'm actually kind of surprised the GH5 is behind the 6D Mark II. I think it was groundbreaking in its dual stabilization video, but it actually isn't the first camera to do that, so maybe not. Steve, you got any thoughts?
Wait, let me see here. Sony A7R3, A9, Nikon D8. Yeah, I mean that's about what I would expect. The 5D Mark IV was actually introduced the year before, so it's losing steam as we go forward.
Let's see.
I mean, I would definitely say that the A7R3 or the A9, probably the A7R3, would be the camera of the year for sure. I think most people can agree with that. The D850 was awfully impressive for the non-mirrorless crowd.
Yeah. Yep. You know, I think the A7R3, it really hits that kind of generalist camera where it can handle some sports, it can handle landscape, similar to the D850. Whereas that A9, that was groundbreaking in many ways. It is groundbreaking in many ways, but it was much more of a narrow focused camera. It's a toss up for me. I think that the A9 in some ways should certainly get a nod because the A7R3 just really kind of takes some of that technology and broadens it. But I don't know. It was interesting to see people's responses, and I let people add in their own. So there's tons and tons of like little random other cameras. Many of them didn't even come out this year. So that's not really the camera of the year if it wasn't released this year. But the Fuji X-T2 did fairly well on this list. I remember seeing it a couple of times and getting a decent percentage, even though it didn't come out this year. But really like that camera. And I have here the XE3. I don't think I'm going to get a chance to fully review this. I've barely used it. You know, it's got a nice look and feel. Honestly, this one feels a little broken to me. The autofocus just keeps pooping out, and I have to turn it off and turn it back on, or disconnect and reconnect the lens. So it's got some issue, and really, it's clearly not all cameras are like that. People would be talking, or not all Fujis. So I'm just going to say, okay, we'll come back to Fuji a little bit later on the road.
Yeah, I think that the A9, though, when it was introduced, was really pretty groundbreaking. The A7R3 wasn't as earth-shattering because it was just kind of a step up from the R2, and it, like you said, it had a lot of technology that the A had. But when they introduced that A9, that kind of surprised everybody. And then when it's an expensive camera to be sure, but when you compare it to like the 1DX Mark II and whatever Nikon's equivalent is, that's a pretty amazing camera.
Yep. Okay. Other wrap-up things into the year. I think today was the deadline, or maybe it was even yesterday, to get in your best, most favoritist photo of the year. Steve, did you submit one?
Yeah, so I submitted one, but I think I did it wrong. And I didn't title it properly. So I had every intention of going back and resubmitting. When did you say the deadline is?
Well, for you, Steve, it's tomorrow.
Okay, tonight after the show, I will resubmit the photo with the proper title, unless you or Roy were able to dig it out of the hundreds that you've gotten It's just my discovering ice photo from.
Okay, I'll look for it. I should be able to. I should be able to handle that. And if you're in the group and you didn't get it in yet, you can still. I will be working on this probably tomorrow afternoon, putting it together, and hope to publish it right after Christmas. I just think it's one of my favorite traditions that we've done here at PhotoRec TV, and just kind of taking all of your pictures and putting them up in a big, beautiful slideshow with some kind of nice inspirational music. And now Roy was wondering, as a short discussion topic, what we would like for the holidays. Now, Steve, I think you just bought yourself a nice iPad. Is that your holiday gift to yourself?
No, not really. That was actually an early Christmas present. So it was a combined effort to get that. It's something that I've actually wanted to get my hands on since it was introduced, I think about the middle of the year. When they came out with the 10.5-inch Pro. So anyway, yeah, I had some help on that one. And but yeah, Merry Christmas to me. Let's see. Oh, I did score from one of our clients. My Christmas gift this year, absolutely, was. So I'm good. I don't need anything. I'm ready to go to Vietnam. I'm super stoked with what we have in store for 2018, but I finally picked up a 14 millimeter Canon 2.8 that I'm extremely excited to put to use. Got a great deal from one of our clients who was selling a bunch of his Canon gear, and I am just ecstatic to have it.
Nice. So I'll return the Sigma 14 I bought for you then, I guess. If you're all set, I knew you wanted that. So
too many ultra wide angles, and the 1.8 compared to the 2.8, that is still a factor.
I know, but I forgot to ship it. Now shipping would probably cost as much as the lens. So, it's okay. You got it. You're covered.
You must have gotten a hell of a deal on that lens.
No, I went in the other day to ship something, and it's like, oh my God, this present is so much. Partly I was a little bit of a procrastinator, but I didn't even ship it that fast, and it's just.
Oh no! Well, we get so spoiled with Amazon Prime, right? Renee, I mean, we don't know a lot of people here in Tennessee yet. We're still new to the area, so all of our family's out on the West Coast, and we ended up shipping tons of stuff out to them. Well, we ended up doing a lot of Amazon Prime shopping, but then we had a bunch of stuff here to ship out, and she came back from the post office. She had to wait in line for, like 45 minutes. And then she got there and they were missing boxes that would fit it properly. So she had to buy a bigger box and all the packing peanuts. And she ended up spending like $100 just in shipping costs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Amazon Prime dues right there. She came home and said, I'm never shipping my own stuff for Christmas again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Caroline's got two great comments that I want to hit on in the chat. One was for camera of the year. I didn't put the choice of the one I have with me, which I think is a great answer. Camera of the year, the one you got with you. Good, Caroline. And also Caroline's wondering if anybody else's Instagram top 9s didn't include any of their favorite photos. Steve, did you do your top 9? You submit to that little website and they spit back your top 9 most favorited.
I did not do that. I'd like to check that out, though.
Yeah.
My activity on Instagram is very sporadic, so there's a lot of stuff that I miss. I'm on Facebook a lot more frequently, but yeah, I haven't done that. I'll check it out.
Yeah. Caroline, I feel like some of mine have hit, they're up there, but the images that get likes don't always correspond exactly to my favorite images. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. All right. And what would I like for the holidays? Well, one, I bought myself the A7R III, so that is a huge early Christmas present. Two, I bought myself the Sony 8518 today.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. That's my first nice Sony lens that I'm going to own, surprisingly, or maybe not. I don't know. I've always used adapted lenses up to now and just had one cheap kit lens that I hardly use from them. I bought it because it was $50 off. I had a $200 B&H gift card, and I looked at my Shutterstock earnings as part of this, prep for this thing, and I was like, if I combine the gift card plus the Shutterstock earnings plus the $50 off, this thing becomes $100. So there we go. I spent that money in my mind. Now, truthfully, I spent that money in my mind a bunch of different ways from Shutterstock, but like food and things besides ramen. But I'm excited. And also B&H is offering free next day shipping. So I ordered it this morning, 9 a.m. my time, and it'll be here tomorrow, which is pretty sweet for no extra cost.
That's awesome. I think at this point, Toby, you've been shooting Sony long enough. You just invested in the A7R III, so replenish those funds, and then it's time to sell a lot of these old lenses and just dive into the G series Sony lenses.
Yeah, well, you know, that's what I did. I sold my 70-200. I have what else did I sold my Sigma 50. So those have been sold off. My Canon 5D Mark III is up for sale here in the Seattle area. Just had one interested person in it. I did the shutter actuation thing on my 5D Mark III, 168,000.
Whoa, well, I don't want to screw up your sale, so yeah, that's
No, I know. You know, honestly, I think I'm asking a fair price. I think I'm asking 800 for it.
Oh, that's good.
You know,
I don't know what the what is the life of that camera with shutter actuations.
I can't remember if they publish it for exactly or if they give you a range, but it's above 200,000. I think 200 to 300,000 is an expected range, and so it's definitely got some serious life in it. And shutter replacement is $200 to $300, I believe, maybe a little bit more.
I didn't realize it was that inexpensive.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if, you know, like I said, I had one person interested in it, but then she didn't respond to my, oh, you're interested? Where are you? Blah, blah, blah. So we'll see. We'll see. One other thing that I bought myself, I don't think I showed this last week or before. It's one of these little zip printers that uses the zero ink technology. They're like the Instamatic cameras, but you just print from your phone. And I'm excited to take this to Vietnam because what I'd like to do is get some nice shots of some people that live there. And then be able to give them a print or two.
We used to sell a ton of those when I worked at Sammy's Camera.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't sell a ton of those. We sold a ton of the Instax mini film and cameras and stuff. But I took a Polaroid to Tanzania that actually made prints. It didn't print on the Instax stuff. Polaroid's got their own paper, and you can peel off the back and stick it. It was really cool. We went to some of the tribes in Tanzania, and we'd take these little Polaroids, and you know, a minute later, you give them a picture of themselves, or stick it on their shirt or something, and
yeah,
crazy for it.
Yeah,
man. It was a lot of fun. And
that's cool.
The model that I have actually keeps a 10 megapixel. I think it's not a high quality image by any means, but it keeps a digital copy of that. So when you get home, you know, it's not like you lost it with the print.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I think nothing more photo related for me. Chat, if you've got things that you're hoping for to unwrap under the tree or during your holidays, let us know.
Yeah.
All right. So for those who haven't been around for a little bit, we have switched the format of this show up. And right after kind of our opening here and week in review and chit chat, we dive right into critiquing some of your photos. Now, Steve mentioned that we've got PPA level critiques coming up. And now PPA is Professional Photographers of America. One thing I learned recently, though, is it is an international organization. So even if you're not an American, even if you're not based in America, there are chapters and pieces of this organization that you can take advantage of all over the world. And we're going to be rolling out through Pen these kind of very high level picky might be a word to describe it, critiques. But again, the same way that I think you and I run these critiques, Steve, we don't tear your images apart. We really try to focus on what we like about them, what could be a little bit better, and give you some kind of tips and tricks for either taking a better picture when you're at this location next time or with this model, and or how to edit it to give it a little bit more impact and a little bit more pizzazz.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the, so we're basically going to apply the, it's a 12-step program. No, I'm kidding. It's a kind of a 12, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, you guys, I'm just drawing a blank, but there's 12 sort of qualifications that an image has to have, or standards that you're looking for. And we're going to actually use those in looking at these pictures. And what it is to get people that really want to get serious and maybe enter some images in competition, in the PPA annual competition. You can only enter for a year. difficult, but I said it before on this show, I've learned so much going through the process, and I'm definitely going to continue it. It's making me a better photographer. I'm not really fit to be a judge of this. I'm excited to take part in it as an instructor and to have some input, but I'm almost looking forward to approaching this whole thing that we're rolling out as a student and coming alongside all of the members of Photo Enthusiast Network and learning from David and Allie, who have had, you know, hundreds of submissions to PPA over the years. They've achieved master photographer, and they really know. And we're even going to have folks that have been or continue to be PPA judges from the IPC competition kind of come in as guests from time to time on judging some of these images. So if you want to get serious about it, I mean, this will be a big deal that nobody else really offers. And I mean, I'm about it, that we're doing it, but I'm very excited about it as a student of photography. So that's going to be great. And then, of course, there's another level to it where it's just much more casual, kind of like we're doing here. And that's what I really enjoy.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's dive in. These that we're going to be discussing today, not at the PPA level, but you know, Caleb specifically on his asked for us to be very picky, and so we will do our best to be as picky as possible. I'm going to share my screen. And let's start with Caleb's. And, you know, Caleb, you apologize for writing this little novel, but I think it's good. It gives us more information about exactly what you're looking for. I always appreciate it when anybody shares what they're looking for and kind of getting it critiqued, what they've worked on and what they wonder. And Steve, you can see this now, just making sure?
Yeah, I've got it.
Let me make sure that it stays on. Yeah, maybe even when you talk. There we go. Okay. I think this is a fantastic image. I saw this come up on Facebook a day or two ago, Caleb, and I think you've done a really, really nice job of it. You had mentioned on Facebook, and you did it here too, that you've spent some time brushing on and dodging and burning. So specifically lightening and darkening different areas of the face, also adding a little bit of clarity to kind of bring out, you know, this guy's he's got a few wrinkles. He's got a look to him, and you've kind of you really wanted, I think, to enhance that and emphasize it. Not like a teenage girl that you might be more likely to smooth their skin. Kind of the opposite here. And overall, I think you've done a fantastic job. I think this is a really nice portrait and a really nice photo. One thing specifically that you, somebody said in a different group, you felt that the eyes were overdone. You're wondering, you never did anything specific to the whites. Are the whites of his eyes too bright? Please comment. I don't think so, personally. Steve?
So nothing was done to his eyes?
No, he says no. Other than I think he did some general probably lightening, probably, you know, of the eye and the kind of the eye socket, but nothing specifically to the whites.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say the whites are awfully bright, but if nothing was done to them, then that's the way it was. It doesn't look bad. It just, you know, if I'm looking at it with a really critical eye, no pun intended there, I do notice that. I'd maybe go in with a little bit of iris enhancing just to kind of lighten up his irises just a bit. I'm a little out of my league on getting really critical on portrait because I don't do a lot of portrait work, and David and Allie have not only done a lot of that in the past, but that's been their business for years. But a little bit of iris enhance just kind of differentiates it from some of the darker features on his skin. If we're really getting picky here, I'd say compositionally, I'd like to see more of the rule of thirds applied. I know his eye, that left eye, is kind of up there in that rule of thirds, but he's centered it. I'd be curious to see, you know, if he's off to a side just a little bit. And I mean, you can even crop in tighter to really get in on him. I know we're always careful about what we're cutting off and stuff like that, but sometimes getting really tight in on a face and can draw you into the subject with a lot of feeling. And then the pipe is getting lost in some of the background. And a way that can be fixed is by, and again, this is only because Caleb asked to be very specific here. The bow tie that's kind of coming down from the pipe, that plaid sort of pattern, if you were to basically clip that out and move it down, so there's a little bit of white between the bottom of the pipe and where that bow tie kind of lays on his chest, and have that go off the frame like the other side, so it's a little bit more symmetrical. And then I would also clip the piece of the bow tie that's sticking out from the left side of the pipe, so that the pipe is kind of framed by the white of his shirt, and you'll notice it a lot more, especially against, you know, that darker beard and stuff. Even light pipe just a little bit.
Yep. Those are all comments I agree with. I don't, however, you know, I cropped it down to this where he's a little bit more thirds. I think I like what Caleb had a little bit more. First, I've also cropped it to an 8x10. Is there, when you submitted images for the PPA, was there a specific crop they had to be?
No, I submitted by print, and that's actually a little bit more difficult. I wanted to push myself. When you submit via print, it can be any crop factor so long as the long edge does not exceed 20 inches. So I had one that was submitted, it was a 20x20, it was a, what was it? It was a 16x20, I think. It was a vertical. And then I had one that was more of like a 16x9 aspect ratio, and it was 20 of the print. So that's it. And then there's a certain pixel size that they need to be, and they show you, there's tutorials on exactly what size they should be, what color space they should be, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very specific there, but the crop aspect ratio can be whatever you want it to be.
So Caleb's asking, like, how would you move that bow tie? And the answer is, Photoshop, select it, cut it, move it down, and then you're going to have to kind of recreate the shirt in the background. It's going to be tricky, but I agree that if you can remove that intersection from pipe to bow tie, it's going to be a little bit stronger in that one peeking out there. I think the iris enhance of the eyes is good. I like that they have just a little bit more life in them, a little bit more depth. I just left it on its default settings. I might take it back down just a tiny notch. I wish we had a little bit of a catch light in the left eye. It's just a little bit shadowed, and you might want to see if you can kind of recreate, maybe copy from here, a little bit of a catch light there as well. And I'd like to see the shadows come up just enough. I feel like I want to see a little bit more detail in the front of this hat space here. But otherwise, as I said in the opening, I think this is a really, that's a little too much, a really nice portrait.
Yeah, I think this image right here by Caleb, and I've seen quite a bit of his stuff, and he takes great pictures. This is strictly like, okay, as a casual image critique, this is outstanding. It's a great picture. And okay, you went back to the way it was there. See all the work that he's put into the face, the before and after. That's awesome. I mean, look at the difference in his eyes. Look at the story that it tells all of a sudden. It's maybe a little hot. It's a little bright, but enhancing those irises and bringing out his eyes from the original shot, it's a huge difference. Yep. So taking it to this level takes it to be a really great image. From here to more of the competitive image sort of thing, that's where I get into like moving bow ties around and just, looking at each little part of the image and how are you going to tell a story with each piece.
Yep. Yeah. Nice. I'll say, I wonder, I know when things go over YouTube, so you're over the internet, it gets compressed down at a lower bit rate. I feel like his face is not too hot, but I think I look at my little thumbnail on YouTube when I'm presenting right now, and it looks kind of hot and not so great. And I think some of that happens as it goes out over. Yeah, definitely a print worth working on some more, Caleb. Very nice.
And just so people know, there's a really great technique, highly scientific technique of figuring out if something is too bright, is just squint your eyes and look at the picture, and anything that just really, when you squint way down and it just really still pops out as bright, those are areas that you really have to think about bringing the highlights down and possibly toning down the whites just a little bit. Because when you look at it with your eyes wide open, those are going to be very, very hot spots in the image.
All right, we've moved on to Kristen's Alaska train shot. And my first thought is, where was I at this shot? Because I feel like this must have been a sharp bend. There's a lot of the train I'm seeing almost at a perpendicular to the camera.
Yeah.
I don't remember this spot. It's beautiful. I like it a lot. But the first thing that I noticed, and maybe this happened after some work on it, because I do see that you passed us a PSD, Kristen, is it feels a little noisy to me. And up in the sky, that's kind of a nice look. I don't mind it. Even in the mountains, not so much. But then we get down to the train here, and I don't know. It's noisy enough to me to be a little bit distracting. Do you have any thoughts on that, Steve, or anything else you'd like to comment?
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. It's a beautiful image. The colors are just so pleasing. I think the problem that I'm having with this is you've got your eye is obviously drawn to the yellow of the train and the movement of the train. I like the fact that there's distance after the front of the train, so you get a sense of where it's going. But it's all on the left side. So if I'm reading it left to right, okay, the movement is happening that way, but all that focal point is over on the right side. And then when I get halfway across it visually, I just find my eyes just falling off and looking another direction. I don't know if flipping this horizontally would make a difference, or I think you're absolutely right. The grain in the sky looks like maybe it was, I don't know. It does look noisy up in the sky. I'd like to see that smoothed out a little bit more. And then I would definitely be in Photoshop just clipping out some of the distracting elements, like down in the corner, you've got those brushes that are just kind of coming in. That's one of the things I talked about on the Tuesday tip, is just cleaning up anything that you don't have the full view of. So if you just have partial branches sticking out of the snow, encroaching your image, maybe just clip those out, because it's just white snow behind it. It comes out very cleanly.
Yeah, I'll just crop in for a second to get those corner branches out of there. This is going to take more train away than I want. That's an issue, because then we don't have enough train. I'm confused by the fact that I just flipped it horizontally, but is the word Alaska still correct for everybody?
I'm having a hard time seeing it.
It looks correct to me, and I'm trying to figure out how that is. The other things you could do is, if you wanted to get rid of the grain in the sky, but you were worried about too much noise reduction, losing some of the detail down here, is you could do a gradient that does noise and just kind of smooths it out.
Bring the clarity down too.
Oh yeah, good call. Ooh yeah.
Oh, really soften it up.
Yep.
Well, she could have flipped this to begin with. This may have actually been the direction the train was going, because it does look to me like it says Alaska.
Yeah. And I would also, the other thing that I'd like to see is a little bit more, a little bit brighter down in the foreground. Just a little, kind of pop it. It looked a little too muted. Love the colors in the sky, kind of love the overall feel of this. But yeah, I think Steve's comment of clipping that corner out, working on backing the noise level back off a little bit, and I think you'll be good.
Yeah, it's a cool picture.
It is. Susan, hey, this might be one of Susan's first images that she submitted to our group. Critique. Nice job, Susan.
Good job.
All right, and this is a JPEG, so we don't have a lot of editing, and I'm not sure if she did any editing to it already. But Steve, what's the first thing that grabs your eye in this shot?
Okay, so first a huge compliment, because compositionally it looks very intentional, and it's awesome. The starting point in the lower left where the trail is, and it kind of takes you around. the thing that grabs my image the most, and you're probably going to agree with me on this, Toby, is that that jet trail on the top right side that just goes vertically right along the border of the right side there.
That's right. The chemtrails, as we like to call them here, right, Steve?
I was going to avoid my chemtrails comment because I took my tinfoil hat off for this show, but I would clip that right out. That will make a huge difference getting that out of there because it's such an eyesore.
Yeah. Would you crop it, or would you clone it out?
Yeah, I mean, you could crop it, but the thing that I like is the trees that are just below it help to balance out the large tree that's encroaching on the image on the left side.
Yeah.
And I do like that balance. I think if you crop it in, it's going to be very, very heavy on that left side where the sun is and the tree is, and your story stops, you know, a third of the way reading left to right.
So let's see how we do there. Not bad. It's going to be a little bit trickier as we get down in here, but let's try. Let's see if we can just do from here and then sample and make one big tree out of those. That's the heel. Let's increase the feathering a little bit. Well, for quick and dirty, we could also try from over on the left-hand side maybe and see if the tree's there. But I think I agree. There's still stuff bothering me there. But I agree that that bright trail really captured my eye and just was a very dominant piece to this image. I also, I do feel like it's a nicely intentional. Again, and this becomes, I think, personal preference to a lot of people, but I like my images usually to be what I use the term bright, you know, fairly brighter. And so this foreground here, I just want a little bit more life in it. Yeah. So I'm going to bring a gradient up across that. That's bringing the shadows up, maybe even the overall exposure a little bit. And then I often just play around. Let's see if we warm this up a little bit more so it feels like it is being hit by that setting warm sun. I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference there. So I think
yeah, and that's applying kind of a lot of green to the asphalt.
Yeah.
Just warm it slightly, maybe bring the tint down to the green side just a bit, and then color correct just the greens.
Yeah.
And then even kind of maybe darken the path just to get some of those white dots that are in there. Yeah. But no, I get excited when I see pictures like this though, because it seems like the photographer, in this case Susan, was just very intentional about her composition, and that's just a big passion of mine.
Yeah, pretty quick. Nice. All right. Ben has been impressing us with his kind of fall foliage shots, which, speaking of which, this is in the Great Smokies, and David has just announced that Great Smokies trip next, what are the dates? November?
First weekend in November.
First weekend in November.
Yep.
So if you've been watching the show and you've been blown away by these beautiful kind of shots that Ben's submitting, you might want to consider that trip.
For sure. And you'll get to meet Renee on that one. At least that's the plan right now.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we've got this beautiful kind of fall lane with a nice little sunburst up above, shot up at a f/25. So we're getting that sunburst. I don't remember if I said that, shared this on the live show or not, but I was talking to Rishi at DP Review after the Sony event. We ended up talking about sunbursts and the fact that the sun rays are the number of sun rays are double the aperture blades. So if we wanted to count these sun rays, we would be able to figure out how many aperture blades Ben's lens has. Just thought that was an interesting fact. Something I had never really spent time talking about as well.
Yeah, if you think about it, I was talking to my wife about this the other day because she was asking how to do sunbursts and you know how that happens, and that's exactly it. I mean, basically your blades are creating this round sort of closing technique, and it's just light coming through where the blades intersect. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly right. Shows you how many blades are in that particular lens.
Yep, nice.
Light leaks.
Light leaks. I'd bring the shadows up even a little bit more. again, you know, I might start to sound like a broken record, maybe especially today, but we've got some of these trunks where I feel like we've lost a little detail. If I hit J, where they're speckled with the blue, which lets us know that we're down below any kind of detail there. So I might actually bring the blacks back to the right a little bit first.
Toby, can you hit real quickly? This is a DNG, so this is a raw file, right?
Yep. Yep.
Go to auto, white balance, or even as shot.
As shot. Here's auto.
Okay. The reason I had you do that is it was warm, and that's beautiful, but it was almost like too warm. And obviously, when you go back to as shot, it cooled it down quite a bit. The warmth, the temperature was way over on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a perfect example of squinting at it to see what the hot spots are. And you can obviously see it with the sunburst, but then the trail, you're kind of really losing some detail in the trail because it's really blown out. It's a little bright. And the overall scene was so warm that the trunks of the trees were dark burnt orange.
Mm-hmm.
Any of the blue that's peeking through from the sky up there. So I kind of like the idea of cooling it down a bit, bringing the highlights down, increasing the shadows, and then going through and selecting each color that you want to accentuate with a saturation or tint, but not the entire image.
Mm-hmm. Bring up a little bit of vibrancy. So coming down into the color range. And now Ben's done some of that already in here.
Okay,
he shifted the oranges that way. He's boosted the saturation and brightness of them. Same with the reds. He shifted from orange to the more magenta colored.
Cool, that's great.
And brought up the saturation of those as well. And then the green, I might try shifting left. And that should kind of warm up some of that as well. I'm not seeing a huge difference though. One tip I have for these different color sliders, sometimes I move something a little bit, I don't see anything happen. I just grab it and start to wiggle it back and forth and see if anything changes. And very interestingly, I see very little change here in the green. So Lightroom is not seeing much in the green realm, but you can see if we shift the yellow, that's where it's really seeing the bulk of those leaf colors. So we could push it back to the left a little bit more. And what's nice is it should leave those trunks mostly alone.
Yeah.
What else did you say? Was there something else that I should have touched on?
Well, I was just talking about squinting your eyes and kind of bringing the highlights down, which it looks like you've done, and bring the shadows up. And then I'm kind of thinking about darkening the road a little bit to blend in with the harsh shadows that are coming across. But I don't know, or lighten the shadows. You go one of either way, I suppose. Probably lightening it would, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd definitely play around with it. It's I mean, kudos to Ben. It's totally cool. You got the sunburst up there. It's just it takes the viewer on a little walk down this path. I love it. It's got a lot of emotion and feeling to it, and it's pretty.
Yep. Yeah. Let's see. One other thing that I might try on a shot like this that has a huge difference between the light and the dark is the split toning, which I don't touch too often because it always seems too heavy-handed. But if we come into the shadows and I want those trunks to not be quite as blue, we can drop this, or sorry, not as warm. So we drop that saturation, and now let's see if that made any difference really. It just kind of cuts through a little bit of that warmth in locations where I feel like it feels overly warm. It's very minor though. And another thing you could do in this area now though is with the gradient tool or the brush, you can mask that range and set a range mask to not hit those darker areas as heavily. So that would be an option as well. I was just curious because I've just recently put together a more serious group of presets that we'll be sharing out as part of the webinar and other places as well. So I have one called Fall Colors, and I did a virtual copy. I hit it. I don't mess with exposure much. Let's see. In mine. So Ben underexposed that a good bit. So if we bring this up, well, I'm pretty happy with what my what my preset does. The road needs more work because it's very bright there, but I kind of like the nice balance of colors. So I was just curious. All right, let's move on to a couple portrait from Mike Ricci. Reese? I don't know how to say Mike's last name.
Love the box.
Yeah, those are cool. Those are very cool. All right. First little couple things that I'm going to work on, and Steve, you can chime in, is just that tiny bit of dark triangle up there. I'm going to bring this in a little bit closer to get rid of that. You could also just kind of mask it out. I can't quite do an 8x10 though. We don't have enough room for that. So I'm just going to come back up somewhere right in there and give them just a little bit more room down here. And again, if you're not printing, it doesn't really matter. So that I think helps. And this is a JPEG, so I'm not sure if you've done any editing to it. I think overall the exposure is quite nice and it looks good. Composition's good. Once I got rid of that, I would add a tiny bit more contrast to make them stand out just a little bit more. It has a little bit of a faded look, which is a little popular right now. So you could make an argument that that's the look you were going for. And I'd pop in just a little bit of clarity.
I'd be really careful on some of that faded look, though. It is popular right now, but I think we're going to look back in just a couple of years, and it's going to scream Instagram filter.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's just going to look kind of dated quickly. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that thought at times, too.
So I have an interesting thing to say about this picture. It's a good picture. I love it, actually. Makes me smile, and so it invokes feeling. I love that. But I see this actually as two pictures. And the reason I say that is I'd like to see a cropped in version that's tight on their upper bodies. His legs are just a little bit awkward. So if you duplicate it and then do one photo as, you know, cropped in on the top, maybe use the rule of thirds, put his face over in the top left of the frame somewhere, and definitely include the hands. And yeah, may have to go vertical with it. So, you know, I mean, okay, so here's the deal. This, when you do that, now I'm not looking at his socks. I am actually totally drawn to their faces. I'm a beautiful couple, that just a pleasing shot to look at. I think it's really pretty. So that's one picture right there. And I would certainly play around with the crop a little bit more. The second picture, I would almost do just the feet as like a super wide, narrow shot, like a 16:9 or even wider and narrower, horizontal, and just bring it down and just put those feet in like the, you know, yeah, maybe, I mean, that's in a little tight. I'd put some space around it. But you kind of get the point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great point, Steve. Let's do one more virtual copy and reset the
and here's the thing. When you get in too tight, honestly, you look like a photographer with some kind of weird foot fetish. But if you did just do free aspect ratio and kind of include that whole bottom section as a horizontal with the socks and the, you know, kind of more dress shoes, I think it looks kind of cool as a one-off.
Yeah. Yep, I think it's great. And Mike, you may have other pictures where you've done just that, and you submitted to us kind of the overall shot, which I think is nice. But the socks are distracting, and when we come in tight like this is just a really nice couple shot. And then I think it'd be really fun to have a little side table where you have that picture, and then of course you've got the socks down underneath as a secondary picture. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very cool. Good suggestions. Let's move on to this one. Venice, maybe, I'd guess, you think? Yeah. All right. So we've got a nice black and white. And the first couple of things that jump out at me is the shadows are a little bit dark. I'd like to see just a little bit more information in there, especially kind of the boat guy over on the left-hand side. And as I brighten that and kind of study that area, I realize that he's just barely cut off. And I I think you've already done a little cropping. You've gotten rid of some of that water foreground. You've gone to a 16:9 crop. I think that was a great idea. This is where I would have loved to see the shot that happened 10 seconds later, because it looks like that, what do you call these guys? Those boats. That boat would have been moved forward just enough that it still wouldn't be intersecting this other boat, and we'd have that little bit of space. Yeah. But overall, I think this does a fantastic job of kind of mixing and matching the old boats, the big, canal cruising boats, and it's a neat kind of aspect of Venice. And it's not a shot that I see typically. Most of the shots I see of Venice are from up on the bridge, looking down at these, going down these canals. And I really like being down at this water level. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. The very, very top right corner just has that little bit of kind of architectural work on the bridge that I would just kind of crop out. Their whole arc just starts and ends very quickly. Mm-hmm. And it starts to tell another story up there that just doesn't go anywhere. So I would eliminate that. But you're absolutely right. Just another second or so, and that boat on the left wouldn't be right up against the frame. And it is a really cool shot. And I'm glad that he went black and white on this. I don't know what it would look like color-wise, but
let's find out. Yeah.
I don't know. Those buildings are pretty muted, and they look kind of nice. The red and white candy striped poles are definitely commanding visual attention.
Yeah.
That I didn't notice before.
Yep. Yeah, it really is a good example of how color can kind of grab you. Caroline, thank you. They're gondolas, and I really like the arch. Caroline likes the arch. I really like it because it helps kind of frame this, and it keeps our perspective down here at the water level. We don't drift off someplace else. It really serves as a nice framing device. So some really cool elements to this picture. It's pretty neat.
Yep.
It's a lot. I mean, look, they got a little mirror hanging off the wall over here, so you're not running into other boats in the canal. I think that's pretty cool. And another one, and I've seen a shot like this fairly classically. The gondolas are kind of all tied up, one heading out on this kind of misty, flat day. Steve, thoughts?
Yeah. So here are my thoughts right off the bat, and it is fixable, but it would be really hard. When you're taking this shot, you got to pay very, very careful consideration to the background elements, because this shot in particular, look at that background. It's amazing. It's just you're going to go there with your eyes. And it's frustrating as a viewer because these vertical pilings or poles are, they're literally framing that tower, but they're cutting it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got this other one that goes right up the middle of those tall columns on the white part of the building. Mm-hmm. And you got this other one, okay, the guy is to the left of it, and that's great, but it just kind of, I understand that this tells a story in this foreground, but that background definitely commands your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot of things that are intersecting it and kind of the wrong places.
Yep.
So it's not a horrible image. That's not my point at all. I think that you really have to be careful when you're taking a shot like this.
Yep. I think this nicely illustrates how just moving a few inches to the left or the right, and there may not be a perfect place. Yoa, you might have, I'm pretty sure I can't remember every time because I'm an idiot how to say your name, but you may have shifted, and this might have been the best place. But I think Steve's, comments, if there was a spot where we had just a little bit more room for that steeple or tower to breathe away from these other elements up front. And similar to here, we got the little bit of the gondola just hitting the front of that. Not too big a deal. But
so what I would do to salvage this, though, because it's still a cool shot, is I'd go to like a square frame or an 8x10 frame, and I would just capture the right side of the picture, and I would cut out everything else. Just bring it in, make that person is going to be the
that tight. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe go vertical with it so you get the top of the piling, and wider. Yeah, keep going wider and wider. And then, you know, yeah, and even just make it yeah, that's probably kind of good right there.
Yeah.
So that is a story right there. And it's not a story that has subplots that are getting kind of cut off from time to time.
Yeah. And Caroline's noticing the pole reflections, which, you know, they're there. They're not exciting enough for me to really care about them in one way or the other. So I'm okay with them getting a little cut off. I don't know if you have any different opinion about that, Steve.
Yeah, they're so wavy that they're not really drawing my attention. I like where you're going with that. We want to look for reflections, and we want to look doing with various textures. So, I mean, definitely kudos for pointing that out.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, it's not a huge visual element. I would rather tell the story of the guy, the gondola. I don't know what they call him, the operator?
I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank.
Sure, it's not operator.
All right, Caroline, you're up. Some old sign in Paris that you found, and very cool, very interesting. It's kind of like I don't know what you call it. Is that a sign or is it graffiti? Oh, it is a sign. And I wondered if you had cropped because it didn't feel super sharp. So I wanted to check that, and you have very much cropped in to this. And you were shooting at your longest focal length, I assume. If you had a longer lens with you, my first advice would have been, put that on and isolate this. But I don't know if I would isolate it quite as much as you did, because I get a little lost. I'm not sure what size it is. I'm not sure what it's on, and so I lose a little bit of the story, a little bit of the context to it. So let's see if we can back out a little bit and kind of give a sense of where this is. Maybe something like that. Maybe a little bit of the awning and a sign down below. What do we think about this spot? All right, there are enough clues now. We've got our street sign, and we have our awning and a little bit of a storefront, a glimpse of like a cool fish purse. I want that. In the window. What do you think, Steve?
Well, okay, so first of all, no to the fish purse, Toby. Crying out loud. Gotten into you, man. Yeah, so I like what you're doing by widening it a little bit more. I would also widen it over on the right side a little bit more, so the subject is more towards the third, maybe not completely, but like that. And maybe a little bit more to the left again, and then I'd probably just include some of those signs down below. I don't really have a problem with those. It's a street scene. I like it as that. So when it was cropped all the way in, I found myself like, what is that thing in the top left corner of the subject? Is that like a shovel or something? I didn't know what that was. Now, obviously, you can tell it's a light, and that's an awning and stuff. So I do like this photograph much better as just kind of an edgy black and white street scene, and then zooming right in on it. Also, you got to be really careful, because now we've got a photograph that's 3206 by 2474 in size. And if you want to post that, you want to maybe print that, you're going to get a decent image out of it. Where you were cropped in before was 950 by 950. And that is just going to be super grainy, super noisy. You're going to lose the overall focus of the image, and it's just not going to look very high quality in print, or possibly in sharing on these high resolution monitors.
Yeah, I think, and Caroline, I think you noticed something cool. You captured it, and I like a little bit more of the elements that kind of tell a story around it. Yeah, I just added a little bit of a post-crop vignette, just a little bit. I don't know.
A picture
Um,
like this, you can actually get away with that. You know, you
yeah.
can apply a little bit more than you would. And I'm surprised you didn't put a white vignette on there, Toby. But
Well, only if I was going back to my parents' wedding anniversary. Just a little hesitant to really apply it too heavy because I don't want the street above, even though it's got a lot of texture, it looks aged. I don't want it to look too dingy, too run down. So I was
yeah,
watching out for that. Sometimes, if the vignette isn't doing what I want, because it's doing it in all four corners, I'll come in with a brush and just kind of brush in a little bit of vignette where I need it. But very cool. Caroline says she's got another that includes the street that was a better shot. Well, Caroline, why did you give us this one?
I think it's a cool scene. Actually, I
Yeah.
was a little bummed that we had to crop all that street out because
Yeah.
it made me feel like I was there,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just looking at an image of something. It invoked more feeling when you feel like you're actually on the street
Yeah.
with all the people.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I love that there's a lot of people there. So I'd love to see some other kind of street scenes that includes this crowds of people. It's a good number. Cool. Thank you, Caroline. And another from Caroline, I think. Another street scene. Now, Steve, I can't remember where it was. You sent me, oh, it was the picture of the chair. I saw your Paris shot in the background. You printed that really nice and big of the couple getting married. Is that right?
Yeah, outside the Louvre.
Yeah.
That's a happy accident. This bride. She may have just been modeling some bridal gear, but they were taking pictures of her and everything, and I got the whole of them. I got the person who was scouting, the photographer, some officiator, and then the bride and the groom figures, all coming out of the Louvre. And she glanced over at me right as I took the picture, and she threw up a peace sign and looked at me with a smile. And it's just, I love that. And so, yes, I did. I blew it up to a 24 by 36, and it's down in our dining room.
Very cool. Hey,
We
Steve,
have 10 dining room.
sorry, we've been through a lot of the show, but every once in a while you cut out a little bit. Is Renee home? Is she watching some web series or something? Is she watching my other YouTube videos and clogging up your bandwidth?
I don't know. She did. I heard her arrive, but I think she was cooking.
Okay. Well,
You want me to put my headset on? I don't know.
no, it's not that. It's definitely like an internet or bandwidth thing, and it's occasional enough that I think we're okay. But if you saw something running on your machine, or if you knew Renee was using the internet, you could politely say, "Hold on, honey." But let's get back to Caroline's picture here, because I mean, my point in bringing that one up with you, Steve, is that I just love Paris for these kind of street scenes and shots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a cool city with interesting people from all over the world, interesting backdrops. And Carolyn, I like this shot a lot. You've cropped it already, and I think that's good. The stuff to the right that you decided to crop out, it's quite busy, and it doesn't really add anything to the story, in my opinion. So I think that was a good call.
Mm-hmm.
You did a square crop. Yeah, a nice square crop. I might try to shift him a little bit, give him a little bit more room. So I'm going to come off, move it left a little bit, and it felt a little off kilter, just a bit. Steve, would you? Well, now see, we got the sliver over here.
Yeah, I would go back to where it was. Also, that'll give you a little bit more space on the right side of the light pole.
The light pole. You're right. Yeah. Steve, would you take the time to transform this guided transform it? Is it?
Yeah, I would. But I mean, quite honestly, and I would encourage everybody to do this, I take the time to transform almost any shot that I'm editing. I know it seems like a pain, but the more you do it, the easier it is, and the better you will be at doing it and also looking for that. So yes, anytime there are strict lines like this, vertical lines, horizontal lines, I do some transforming to ensure that it's straight in the way that I want it.
Let's see if we get one there and we do one right down here. What we end up with. We do one over here.
Yeah. That looks pretty good.
It does look pretty good to me too. Maybe one more across the bottom. Too much. Delete that one. You can just hit delete to back that one off. Let's say I think it's pretty good there. It feels a little left leaning still, but just a
little. I have to widen the crop just a little bit to show a little bit more on the right side of that pole, so it doesn't draw attention to those lines too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that looks good. Well, kind of cut the eyes off above at the top.
Oh yeah. I think they were already. Was that? Let's take that off and see where we end up with. Oh no, you're right. Yeah, they were there still. So you would work back and try to kind of find a happy medium that keeps the eyes from getting cut off.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd crop them out. I mean, having them intersect the edge of the frame isn't that big of a deal, especially if the one on the right is included.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's obvious the one in the center is the same thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is getting pretty nitpicky.
Yep. Overall, it's a nice image. I think your exposure is good. I might bring the shadows up. You brought it up a good bit already. So in that case, I might get the brush and just bring them up similar to what Caleb did in his case. Just bring them up on the guy's face just a little bit. Just get a little bit more detail out of that so it kind of stands out from his darker clothes and the shadows that he's on. Seeing what's my flow's 100. All right, let's bring up I'll cheat and bring up the exposure a little bit. There we go. Subtle, but I think it makes him stand out just a little bit more. Anything else you'd suggest, Steve?
No, that's good. And I saw Carolyn comment and wanted to see if you would hate the crop. She couldn't decide if she liked it. I think she made the right move on doing the crop. I think that was.
I think that comment though was in reference to I'll call her Betty Boop. She looks like old French Betty Boop.
Oh, that was from a while ago, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, nice. Hey, there's just some great photos submitted today, folks. Thanks so much for putting yourself out there. Always appreciate it. I hope you found that it was useful. And I saw a couple people ask, when are these higher level critiques coming? And our goal is to have something to you in late January, early February. I know that might feel like a little ways off, but it's going to be here before we know it. And we're going to be away for a big chunk of that. So we don't want to promise anything sooner.
Yeah.
But it'll be good. And then our goal will be to be about one a month of that kind of higher level critique. And there'll be a little bit more community, what do you call it? Community involvement in that as well. So it's good. All right. We're going to hit a couple of quick news stories and then, start to wrap this puppy up. It's been an hour and 15 minutes already. Let me find my notes.
Alone today.
Adobe's released the final standalone version of Lightroom. So those who are on the final standalone version of Lightroom, you've got an update to it, and that will be your very last. So you're shit out of luck if you buy a new camera in the next year, 2 or 3, and its RAWs are not supported by Lightroom. You'll have to do goofy workarounds or whatever. So they want all in on this. I don't know. They're not the only ones that have gone to a subscription model, but there are some other alternatives that are coming on. I know some in the group have been discussing the Luminar, which I have a trial version of thanks to MaxSense, and I need to actually play with it. Finding the time to is an issue. We talked about Capture One already. So there are alternatives, but some of these alternatives also use the kind of subscription model. So we'll see. What else is important?
I think it's just it's going with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, all the software that's on our smartphones and everything else, it's all just, you get what you get, and there's updates that happen, and hopefully it gets better. And if you're frustrated, then another update comes in it. The days of just buying your software and installing it, unless you're doing really specialized work with a large company, proprietary sort of stuff, then I'm just not surprised at all. Eventually, they have to just stop kind of supporting some of these older editions.
Yep.
It's not going to please everybody. I get that, but I'm personally really happy with the subscription based software because it gets updated constantly. New cameras are supported, and if there's a frustration, I'm usually pretty confident that it's going to be fixed soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Caleb's asking how my experiment with Capture One is going, and Caleb, I would pretty much say it's over because Lightroom is now supporting the Sony files, and it's just so much faster and easier to work with in there. And you know, I hear the people say tethered shooting, Capture One seems to be the way to go. It works really well, really fast. We've got this other news article about the amazing tethering speed of the Sony a7R III. Really, that headline's misleading. It should be the amazing tethering speed of the Sony a7R III compared to the slow a7R II. It's not any other faster than any other current camera, but it's a big improvement over the predecessor. And it worked really well in Capture One. And as Steve, you said, you felt like, I think we talked about this last week publicly. I know we've talked about it personally. You felt like you've edited side by side. Was it just one photo?
I did a couple photos, but there was one in particular that I did in Capture One, and I wanted to try and edit it exactly the same way in Lightroom and Photoshop. And to me, it felt like it took a lot more steps, a lot more doing in Lightroom to get it to the effect that I had in Capture One. Capture One to me seemed to do a much better job of handling the raw file and giving me just straight, you know, and I'm not applying a preset or anything like that, but right, my base that I'm working with wasn't nearly as muted, wasn't as hazy. It was just much cleaner. And personally, I thought, you know, it just popped a lot quicker and it looked well on Capture One.
Yeah.
Although with the logistics of getting around, I know that that would kind of dissipate over time, but that was a bit of a challenge for me because I'm so familiar with Lightroom. But I also like the fact that layers are kind of built into Capture One. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of nice to be able to mask something off and just work on it right there without having to pull it into Photoshop.
Yeah, I liked some of the elements of it. It's just even after using it for a solid 2 weeks, just found it to be still much slower than when I worked with Adobe, and difficult. I'd like not to give up on it completely, because again, I think it does do well with the Sony files, but to be honest, I'm probably just happy enough in Lightroom. And as Caleb points out, having the subscription really kind of makes it more affordable. Just paying monthly as opposed to Photoshop and Lightroom together represented several $100s, if not like $500 or $600 if you didn't pirate them, which a lot of people did. And this monthly subscription is a little bit better.
Yep.
One other news story. I'm curious, Steve, you're doing some traveling for the holidays, seeing family and friends. Will you be taking along your camera?
Yeah, I will be. And I only laugh because when my wife and I just travel together personally, a non-photography trip, like we're just going to see family or something, I make a real effort to actually leave my camera behind. Because starting out, it was great because I could use that time to practice my shooting and this and that. And then it almost just got to be expected that Steve was just going to have his camera with him at all these family functions. And I found it much easier to just enjoy myself by leaving it behind and having conversations without the camera as the distraction. And plus, I just shoot all the time for my life's work. I am bringing it though because we're going to have a lot of people in this chat room may not know this. I have 4 grandkids, and we're going to see all 4 of them. They're bi-coastal, so we're going to see all 4 of them. And my wife has charged me with getting a really good photograph of all 4 of the grandkids.
Cute, nice, sounds good. That's reasonable. So it sounds like
I do that in Chicago for New Year's.
Yeah. So you'll use it for a targeted purpose, but otherwise you probably will not be shooting with it too much.
No, I'm going to have my iPhone with me, and we're going up to Chicago for New Year's. I'm not going to bring my camera. I'll just, really enjoy myself without that.
Well, part of the reason I got the 85 is because I want to take some nice portraits of the kids at Christmas time. So I'll take some pictures, but again, like you, I'm happy to put the camera down for periods of time. and capture some stuff on my phone if it's a can't miss moment or a really sweet moment. And sure, it's noisy and it's not, you know, a beautiful professional looking print or picture, but it's a memory. And I'm happy with that at times. I don't need everything to be this crystal clear, bokeh blown out moment to enjoy it as well. Caleb says, Steve, you don't look old enough to be a grandpa.
I do get that. So I married into stepchildren, and my oldest stepdaughter got married and has 3 kids, and she got married pretty young. And then my stepson's got a little boy. So yeah, it always throws people off. And they say the same thing to my wife too. My wife had kids at a pretty young age. So but we love it. It's awesome.
Very nice. Hopefully I've got many years ahead of me before I'm a grandpa, even though we are the same age, basically. I think that's good. The stock updates. Well, I announced at the beginning of the show that I'm at like $226, but I filled out my tax info to cash that out, and I'm going to be putting it towards, I don't know how many air quotes to do there, putting it towards that 85 that I just bought today. And Roy, you're up 50 cents on Shutterstock, so you're at a $12.39, and your dreams time is at 70 cents. We've got all the show notes, a bunch of news articles that we're not even mentioning. They're all linked down below this video. You can go check them out, along with links to check out all of these different stock photography sites, and give them a shot if you want. Roy's the youngin' in the group. That's true. You are the youngin', Roy. I think you're
I don't know if he wants to share, but I was thinking about that the other day. I have no idea how old Roy is.
Roy, I think you're just a little bit over 30, if I remember correctly. Right around the 30 mark. Instagram channel. Go ahead, Steve.
If he doesn't go gray quickly, he's one of those guys that will just look young for a long time with the dark hair.
Yeah. We had the weekly challenge of product photography. There were some fantastic images in there that our pics will be out soon. Photos from space. Layers of the Martian landscape. Let's take a quick look at this. Whoa, this is cool. So, faulted layers in the Martian ground. This is an image from the NASA Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO, of the northern meridian planum that shows faults that have disrupted layered deposit. Some of the faults produce a clean break along the lines, displacing and offsetting individual beds. Interesting, the layers continue across the fault and appear stretched out. Very cool. This is a neat kind of pattern shot.
I noticed in the notes that you have where stars go to live and die. Is that another photo that we're showing too?
We can if you want. Roy just gave me 2, and I picked the bottom one. I feel like we pulled this up. I'll share it real quick since you mentioned it. I feel like we pulled this up last week.
Yeah, that was last week. Yep.
Yeah, it's just the size and the space of space. And when I see something like this, how do we comprehend? I mean, like what, a million Earths would fit in that space or something ridiculous like that?
The photographer should have left a person in there for perspective.
A little person standing on a bit of a mountain. Perfect idea.
They shouldn't have photoshopped him out. You know, use the Leaning Tower of Pisa approach.
I love it. I love it. So, Carolyn, you're not the only one talking. Steve and I are talking too. All right, so 2 quick questions. One, Caroline's easy. When is the webinar? I'm almost positive it's going to be January 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Is that right?
No.
East Coast time.
Nope.
Oh, hell. When is it?
It's January 2nd.
Oh.
6 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
6 p.m. Pacific. We'll publish in the group very soon. It's almost all ready to kind of put all the gears in motion for that. So evening of January 2nd, East Coast European time for you, Caroline. That's going to be quite late. but there should be a replay option down the road. So stay tuned for that.
There will be replay. We're working on how that gets rolled out, but that is something that we are going to do. And yeah, so tune in on the 2nd from 6 p.m. Pacific.
Yep. And then Lindy has a question. She's about to put up her Canon 24-105 f4 for sale. And when she went to take some pictures of it, she noticed that there's a few blemishes on the lens glass. I'm going to assume on the outer element. So you're talking about, I don't know, you're talking about this part of the lens out here. When you put it under nice light and you went to take some nice pictures, you notice that it's not perfect. You've never seen anything show up in your photos, but you're not sure how to price it, or if there are some test shots you should do to make sure that nothing truly shows up. Some thoughts. First thing I'd say is take some test shots at very high apertures. Give yourself a lot of light, shoot some. Can be out of focus, because anything that is that close should show up whether or not the distance is in focus. You should be able to see like a little bit of a kind of a something. It's very likely that it doesn't impact your image in any discernible way for a variety of reasons. Way back when Christina bought a used, I think it was the Canon 85, or maybe she bought some lens that the person said, hey, the dogs are barking. Said there's a scratch on the edge of this lens. It doesn't impact the images in any way, and there was a good discount because of that. You're going to have to discount at some, Lindy, a little bit more than kind of the going price of a pristine used one. Oh, I might have to get the door. Sorry, Steve. Can you finish talking about pricing? Be right back.
Yeah. So what I was going to say about this is, even if it doesn't appear in the photographs themselves, you're going to need to disclose it, just because visually somebody's going to see that, and they obviously you don't want to be the seller that's trying to hide something and they discover it later when they get home. But that is going to be a concern to people. You're going to have to price it accordingly. What you may consider doing is actually going into like a local camera shop that buys used gear. Maybe talk to Adorama or B&H if they've got a market for that. Full disclosure, of course, let them know that that's there, but it's not showing up in images, and what would they give you? The only reason being is when you're selling to a private party and there's blemishes and that kind of stuff, I don't know, it can just be kind of a tough situation, or you end up with a lot of people that look at it and then they don't buy it, and you're just wasting so much time trying to get it off your hands, where you could have just taken a little bit less money and sold it to a big operation that can either buff it out, or it doesn't matter that much to them and they sell it with the reputation that they have. So you're going to have to disclose it even if it doesn't show up on the pictures, but still it's good to do that so that you could tell the buying party that, hey, it does not appear in photos.
Yeah, I missed some of that, Steve, but I think we're on the same page there. You're going to take a hit, even if it doesn't appear in the photos, versus, you're not going to be able to sell it for a price of one that has the pristine front element. But somebody looking for a deal, you shouldn't have to knock too much off if it really doesn't affect the pictures. And as Steve said, going with Adorama or B&H, those guys are very fair. I always hear good stories about people saying, I sent it into them. They said I was going to get $100 or $200, and they looked at it and said, hey, actually, this is, we'll give you 250 or 300 even. The only other thing going against you here, Lindy, is the 24-105 is just, they're a dime a dozen on the used market. There's just so many because they've been a kit lens for so long, and there's a version 2 out now. I'm going to assume that this is version 1 you're selling. So just, pass it on, but you're not going to get too big a bucks for it.
Yeah, and she says in here that Adorama is interested. I'm the kind of guy that will take a little bit less and just sell it to an operation like that, because I just don't want to waste my time placing the ad and screening phone calls and having people come over or having to meet them somewhere. Time is money, right? And I'd rather spend my time doing something else, or making money as a photographer, or whatever you want to do. So and to Toby's point, the 24-105, it is there's a ton of them. In fact, if you search even rural areas for Canon L lenses on Craigslist. That's about the one lens that always comes up because it's a popular kit lens. So it's still a great lens. It's awesome. But yeah, unfortunately, even if it doesn't show up in pictures, it's a cosmetic issue. It will hit the value of it a bit.
Yep. I see them going on Amazon for used for as low as $500. Oh, you want to trade in? Yeah. So if you've got a lens, I said that in the comment, you've got a lens that you've got your eye on and they'll give you a little bit more trade-in wise, then it really starts to become a better value to trade into these people. And like Steve's saying too, you know, if you got oodles of time, if you're just sitting around playing puzzles all night long, well, then take the time to list it in a couple different places and make a few $100 more bucks. But, you know, time is money. And there's certainly something to be said of the less of the hassle, because I know just you sell anything online these days and you're going to get at least a couple of people that are going to be scammers and going to waste your time with emails back and forth.
Yeah. And as a trade up, that does change things for sure. And I would encourage you to actually call Adorama and talk to them on the phone if you haven't already. I've bought a number of lenses from them. I've gone through like Canon pricewatch.com, and they've got street prices. Will negotiate. Bought through that sort of technique have come from Adorama, and I've talked to them directly over the telephone and told them what I'm willing to pay and what I want. And they're willing to work with you. So it's worth a phone call for sure. And I'm glad to hear that, because as a trade, you're right. They're going to be more apt to give you a little bit more for it.
Yep. Yep. And so she got a label from them to send it in for a quote. I definitely do that. But if I had to guess how much they're going to give you, I would be shocked if it was above 400. But yeah, we'll see. It's worth a little bit of time. All right. I think we're at the end of the show. Now, Caleb says the show always ends abruptly. So goodbye, everybody. Nope. I think I'm all out of everything. Steve, you good?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I think the amateur fun is the time really is flying now.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing, because I really enjoy those. Hopefully you guys are getting something out of them. I don't claim to be any expert by any means, but I think when we put our heads together, we can come up with a couple of pearls here and there. So thanks for sticking with us.
You're an expert, Steve. Own it. You are. You got a great eye, and you just. I think we come up with some good stuff together. Yeah, I agree. No show next week. You're traveling, holidays, yada yada yada, and then I do believe we will have a show on the 3rd to ring in the new year. And maybe we'll start a post in the group. What are your 2018 photo resolutions?
Love it. Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
And I don't mean 24 by 36, you know what I mean, or 2000 by 995. I mean, what are you looking for in 2018? And I'll be honest, 2017, I really wanted to stay on top of my Lightroom organization. It's improved over 2016, but I think I mentioned this on the show before. I really want to kind of dial in which images get sunk to the other Lightroom, the mobile one, and really stay on top of all of my images. I have a couple of large folders. They're nicely, dated and timed and stuff, but they're not ranked inside there because they got moved over from the laptop and for some reason lost some of that. So I've got some where I've got winning images in there, images I like, I should say, but they don't have any star ratings to them. So then when I go to look at my whole catalog and say, show me my 4 stars, those are completely left out. So I want to be more on top of that.
Yeah. I don't have any resolutions just yet. I am noticing in the chat, though, Caroline, thank you very much. To everybody out there, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, Happy Holidays, and Happy Solstice. So I am going to go put my tinfoil hat back on and celebrate the solstice here, although it's already very dark.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
It's a short day. Yep. All right. And Roy's reminding all of us that the Instagram challenge, which is holiday, is for 2 weeks. So we'll be back with you all in about 2 weeks. Thanks so much, Steve. Thank you. Have a great holiday. We'll be talking.
See ya.
Bye-bye, everybody.